Hello friends, welcome back to digitalk. In this session, I am going to cover the basics of service-oriented architecture, okay, which is seems to be one of the complex topic, but actually it is not. Okay, so I am going to explain you this the concept of SOA, which is called the service-oriented architecture, from the basics. Okay, and trust me, this one session is sufficient for you to understand what exactly is SOA and how it works. Okay, so let us begin with the discussion. Okay, what exactly is SOA? So I'm going to cover few component of Oracle SOA Suite, which is the SOA product from the Oracle, but the basic concept is the same across all of the stack. Okay, whatever the software that you are going to use, okay, doesn't matter for which organization it belongs, whether it is Oracle or some other SOA Suite. Okay, the basic concept would be same. Okay, so service oriented architecture. Okay, the first thing, it is very clear from the name as well, which is service oriented architecture. That means it is a kind of a architecture which is completely based on service. Now what does it mean service here? That means reutilization of the code or reutilization of the certain modules. Okay, so what does it mean? Let me give you clarity on that one. Okay, for example, as we are in an enterprise world where we have a very large applications that has an integration with the multiple other modules, multiple other software within your same organization, or maybe with the third party organization, you have a lot of kind of integrations where a lot of data is getting exchanged between different kind of applications on the daily basis, right? So when we design this kind of architecture, okay, where you have a multiple number of applications, multiple number of modules where they have a complete dependency on each other. Okay, so there would be a lot of area that that will be same across all the applications, or you can say certain kind of application modules that will be same across the multiple applications. Okay, so let me talk about few of them. So for let us talk about payment system, or you can consider it as a payment module. Okay, so you have a multiple application within your organization. Okay, that this application need the integration with the payment to receive the payment from the clients. Okay, so what you can do, you can write the code only once. For example, you can write a payment module, and this payment module you can call inside all of the applications wherever you need the payment related services for the client. That means you have designed the modules only one, which is called the payment module, and then you are going to integrate it wherever it is required, or wherever in your application you need the integration of any of the modules or applications or software. Okay, where you need to receive the payments. Okay, you can integrate it with the payment module. Right. So this is one of the example of your service. Now, other example you can take as a notification service. Notification service. Okay, so it's very clear from the name as well. What exactly is notification service? It is doing a certain doing certain kind of a notification. Maybe it is triggering certain messages. Maybe it is triggering some emails. Okay, so in case of a certain kind of a events, you may need to notify. For example, in an e-commerce organization or e-commerce business, you need to notify the customers, right, throughout the journey of the order. You need to send the multiple SMS. You need to send the multiple emails. Okay, even you need to send the multiple emails or notifications to all of the delivery partners as well till the journey of an order is completed in the e-commerce. Okay, so what you can do, you can design a module for the notification, which you can call as a notification service module. Okay, and wherever you need this module, irrespective of your applications or software, okay, you can integrate it wherever it is required, right? The third example you can take as authentication and authorization, which is one of the critical part as of today, right? So even you are going to log into your e-commerce website, you need to log in with your username and password along with multiple two-factor authentications like SMS or maybe some other methods, right? Similarly, if you have this multiple applications, okay, within your organization, and where you need to implement certain kind of authentication and authorization, maybe you are dealing with the multiple clients, you have a multiple clients, and then for each and every client you have a different kind of applications, right? So what you can do, you can design an separate module for the authentication and authorization, okay, which we called as an authentication and authorization module, and that can be reutilized. right? So these are certain examples of the service. So that means what we are doing with the service oriented architecture, we are doing the utilization of the different kind of a code or modules as a service. That is called a reutilization. This is one of the basic concepts. Okay, so now let us come to the core concept of your SOA. What is the core concept of service oriented architecture? Okay, so now the very first basic thing, let me explain you with a simple example what exactly is SOA. Consider this is a SOA. Okay, and here you have a source application. Okay, SOURC, this is your source application. Okay, and here you have target application. Okay, so now we have a source application and a target application. If we need to integrate this source and target application with each other so they can talk to each other, that means they can share the data with each other. Okay, so we can utilize the SOA. That means, let me mark it as well. Your source can reach to SOA, and then your SOA will translate that message to the target. And similarly, when the response need to send back, the target will send the response back to SOA, and then SOA is going to send response back to source application. Okay, so now your SOA is working as an integration tool here. Integration tool. It is a kind of an integration tool. If you see here what we are doing a kind of a integration, right? Where source application is sending message to target and then target is sending response back to source, but it is all happening with the help of SOA, right? So now what is the meaning of SOA here? Your source, you can directly integrate your source with the target as well. Why we need SOA here, right? So here the benefits of SOA come in picture. Now let us consider an example where you don't have SOA in between. Okay, you have a source application. Okay, let me write it again as well. You have a source application and you have a target application. Now we have integrated both application with each other. That means your SOA, your target application code need to be defined in source, and similarly the source code need to be defined in target in the both way. That means you need to update your code so that your source can send the message to target and target can send to source. Now today you have only one source and one target, right? Now suppose tomorrow one source came in picture, which is called the source 2. Okay, now this source also need to communicate with this same target. What you need to do? You need to define the same kind of a coding in source 2, and again you need to update the target as well. So you are going to update the source code and you are going to update the target code again so that it can talk to source 2 as well. Now tomorrow suppose that you have one more target, okay, which is called target 2. Now these two applications also need to talk to this target 2. Your business is growing, your partners are growing, you need an integration with the multiple partners for multiple kind of things, right? So what you will do, again you need to integrate this source with this target, and again if this source 2 also need to talk to this target, then again you need to integrate with this target 2. So that means this kind of integration, every time you need to change the code, okay, so that source can listen to target and target can listen to source. Now this is a 2. Now suppose now tomorrow you have multiple source coming in the picture. Similarly you have multiple targets are coming in the picture like this one, right? So now you think the complexity, these all need to talk to each other, right? What you are doing a one-to-one mapping of each and every source and target so that they can talk to each other, right? Every time you have to change the code so that the source can integrate with the target, and every time you have to change the code of source and target in this way. Now if suppose that this your target and source are getting increased day by day, now you can think how complex it is, to manage. Isn't it possible, okay, for you to every time you have multiple source and target and each source and target are talking to each other? Okay, so in that case you have to change the source code, you have to change the target code, and you can think the what complex is the maintenance of this one. If you are getting any kind of issues, then how tough is the troubleshooting? And because one source is integrated with the multiple targets and multiple targets are integrated with the multiple source, if there is any downtime of any of the target or any of the source, other targets or other source will not able to talk to each other, even though they are the independent. If source 1 is talking to target, okay, and if this target is going down, this source 2 as well is not able to talk to target, right? So you can now think about the complexities, how complex it is, right? So what will happen in that case, if suppose that I can have I have a solution in between, right, which can hide all these complexities or the problems that we have been facing. So what we can do, we can integrate this with the help of SOA. Okay, that means we can have a intermediate tool in between, which we have, right? So let this is a SOA. So in this case, what will happen? There is no direct mapping between source and target. Your source is configured with the SOA, and again your target is configured with the SOA, like this one. Now tomorrow, suppose that you have a multiple more source are coming in the picture. You have a 3 more sources, and tomorrow you have a 2 more. That means total 3 targets there, right? So now what will happen? They need to talk to each other. So what you can do? You can just plug in with the SOA, like this one, right? And tomorrow you may have a few more sources, and then you may have few more targets. You can simply plug in with the SOA. Now think now how easy it is to maintain. Every source and every target just need to plug into SOA, and this SOA will work as an integration tool intermediate in between, which will take the data from the source and then it will forward to target. Similarly, it will get the response from the target and it will send to source. So now you don't have a one-to-one mapping. You don't need to modify any of the source or target code. What exactly you need? Only you need the service-oriented architecture, SOA URLs, or the different kind of services that supported by the SOA. Okay, that you can directly call from your source applications. Similarly, using that service, you can integrate with the targets. And suppose now if you have any downtime for any of the source or any of the targets, it is not going to impact the others, because service oriented architecture SOA is always running. If suppose that this target is down, okay, it is not responding. Okay, so what will happen? Only this particular target source will get impacted, but rest of the rest will working fine. So the completely source and targets are independent of each other, and it is very easy for do the maintenance. Any target or any source can be plugged in independently anytime, and they can plug in back to the SOA. So the maintenance will also going to be easy in that case, right? So the implementation will be easy, the maintenance will be easy. So there are few more benefits. I will explain you about that as well. So hope now you are clear about what exactly is a SOA, or is a kind of an integration tool which had the complexity of this kind of a communications, where we have a multiple source need to talk to multiple targets, right? So SOA is working as a plug and play solution, where you can just take the source, plug into the SOA, and similarly you can take the target and plug into a SOA, and thus your integration is completed. You don't need to modify any of the code either from the source side or either from the target side. Now this is one of the benefit, which is we are saying that it is a kind of a integration tool. Now other major benefit of SOA, it does the transformation as well. Let me write it here. It does the translation or transformation of the data. Transformation, or this can be considered as translation of the data. So what kind of a data it is going to be translated? So here what I said, your source is talking to your target, and target is sending response back to the source, right? So when I'm saying they are talking to each other, they are doing the communication, what exactly they are doing? These are the applications, and they are sharing the data with each other, right? It could be XML file, this could be a JSON file, this could be a certain text file which is having the data from the database, right? So all, or it could be image, it could be a PDF file, right, which sources need to send to the target. So when we say about the transformation or translation, so these source and target applications are not same. This may not be same. What does it mean? For example, you have a source application which is developed in Java, and you have a target application, okay, which is developed in .NET. right? So these are completely different programming languages, right? They have a own development framework, okay, independent framework, and they're completely different. Now we need this kind of a communication where one application which is developed in some different programming language in different framework need to talk to a different target which has been developed in some different language or different framework. So this kind of a communication allowed by the SOA. So what will happen in that case? Your Java will send the message to SOA, and this SOA will do the transformation. So what means of transformation here? It will convert the data in a way so that .NET can understand it, right? So now you don't need to do any kind of a integrations or any tight coding between your source and target, right? If you think that if SOA is not there and you have a Java application which need to talk to .NET application, how complex it is? It is not easy, right? So in that case, your SOA can do a transformation when it is sending message from Java to .NET. Similarly, when .NET is sending the response, want to send the response back to Java, the program or the application which has been developed in Java, it will send the response back to SOA. And again, SOA will do the transformation of the messages or data that it will receive from the .NET, and it will send it to the Java application so that it can understand it. So this is other major benefit of your SOA, which is called the transformation or translation of data. So this is the almost same. You can take it, understand it with a basic example. For example, if you have an Indian, okay, and here you may have someone from the Japan, right? So now this Indian want to talk to Japan, but the problem is this Indian guy don't know the Japanese, and similarly this Japanese guy don't know the Indian, right? So what exactly you need in that case? You need a translator in between, right? You need a translator. What is the work of this translator? This translator, let me modify it. So this translator will understand the language from the Indian. It will translate and then it will again replicate it to a Japanese guy. Okay, it will convey to Japanese guy. So this translator has to understand both language, Indian and Japan, right? We have a multiple people across the world. They are very expert in the multiple languages, right? They work as a translator. So he will listen to Indians and then translate it and explain it to Japanese. Similarly, the response from the Japanese guy will be listened by the translator, and this guy will translate this Japanese language to the Indian again. So if even the Indian don't know Japanese and Japanese don't know Indian, but still they can be able to talk to each other just because of the mediator, which is the translator. Same work here SOA is doing here in this particular case, where Java based application need to talk to .NET and .NET need to talk to Java, but they don't understand each other's language, so they can talk to SOA, and this SOA can do the transformation, and then they can send the response back to the Java based application and .NET application. And this is the other major benefit. So what we two important thing we learn, or not two, with three important thing what we learn about the SOA. It is a service oriented architecture, that means reutilization of certain codes or modules. Second, it acts as an integration tool. Okay, we have explained or we have understand how complex without the architecture if we don't have a SOA in place, right? And third, we understand it works as a transformation or translation as well, translator as well, for transformation of data between source and target, specifically when they are designed in some different languages or different platforms or frameworks. So these are the two important or three important core concepts of your SOA you should understand. Okay, so if you have clarity of all these three components or all these three concepts, then it is very easy for you to understand, because after that what you have to learn, you have to understand what all are the different software components are there inside the SOA, and what is the purpose of that one. Keeping in mind that what is the work of SOA, it is an integration tool and a transformation tool which is taking the data from source and sending data to the target. Okay, so now to implement this SOA, we have a multiple component inside the SOA. Okay, and let me explain you that as well. That is also very easy. Okay, I know there if you are here and if you are on this particular lecture, okay, and you may be confused on the multiple SOA concepts. Okay, for example, you have a people, you have a human workflow, business rules, event framework, and then BAM, mediator, adapters, ESS. But the concept is very simple, and I will explain you. Okay, so once you will end up with this session, then definitely you are going to get a lot of things about the SOA. Okay, so now let me give you some four important benefits of the SOA. Even though we have discussed, but let me recap on that one. The first thing that you will heard about the benefits of SOA, it is a loose coupling. Now, what is the meaning of loose coupling here? The meaning is very simple as a name, loose coupling. That means there is a coupling which is very loose, right? So what we heard here, your source integrate with the SOA, and then your target also integrate with the SOA. So that means this is a plug and play kind of architecture. That means you can anytime plug in or plug out the source or target from the SOA. So this is called the loose coupling. That's it, right? And then you will hear that it is flexible. Okay, so what does it mean flexible? So this is completely based on the architecture that we have discussed so far. If you would like to replace any of the component or any of the source, any of the target anytime, okay, then it is very flexible to plug in and plug out any of the source or any of the target from the SOA and then again reintegrate with the SOA. Okay, now easy maintenance and debugging. Easy maintenance and debugging. So now we can see that we have a multiple source, okay, multiple targets, and they have a one-to-one mapping only with the SOA. They do not have a one-to-one integration with each other, right? So that means the maintenance of each and every source or target application is very easy. Whenever you need any kind of a maintenance for any particular service, you can just plug out that service from the SOA, do the maintenance, and then you can re-plug in that services to the SOA. Maybe for example, this there is a composite. Okay, so when we deploy the application or code in the SOA, that is called a composite. So for example, you have a multiple applications, okay, and you would like to have a maintenance or debugging for a particular composite code. What you can do, you can just plug out that particular composite from the SOA, okay, and if you need any kind of debugging, then you can enable the debugging for only for that particular composite. Okay, you can enable to certain kind of a parameters, or you can similarly the same thing you can apply for the target as well. So that means in this services oriented architecture, the maintenance and the debugging will be very easy. Okay, fourth one is the service invocation. Okay, service invocation, and in this you will see synchronization and asynchronization communication. So what it means, synchronization is a kind of a communication where we need the response immediately. For example, this source application is sending the message to target, okay, and it need the response immediately. Okay, so it is also possible you can configure the synchronous service in the SOA. Okay, so that once the source will send a message to target, it will immediately send the response back to source application via SOA. Okay, and there you have multiple kind of services which is called the asynchronous. Okay, that means the SOA is sending some data to a target, but response is not really needed at the same time. Okay, you can wait for that one. For example, if I talk about a synchronous service, maybe you are booking an order on the e-commerce website. Okay, so as soon as your order is confirmed, once you do the payment, you need the response immediately, right? Whether your order has been booked or not, or payment has been debited or not, right? So this kind of a called synchronous service. Immediately, you need the response immediately. Async services, say for example, your order is booked. After that, it will take some time to confirm you about when the product will be dispatched and when it will be delivered to your home. Okay, so for that you have to wait for some time, right? So that is called a asynchronization messaging. For that, the response is not really needed immediately. Okay, so your SOA is also support that. Okay, so now if we see one thing here, the synchronous, you are getting the response immediately between source and target. But for asynchronous, when I'm saying, you have to you can wait for to get the response. You don't need the response immediately, right? So in that case, your source is sending some data to SOA. Okay, this SOA is storing the data in the internal system, and it may be sending the target to a later time, or maybe at the immediately, or maybe your target is picking the data which has been sent by SOA at a later time, right? So that means this SOA application has a storage kind of a facility as well. So let me write it separately. So this is a storage kind of a facilities which is available in the SOA. Okay. So for example, if you know about the JMS, Java Messaging Service, okay, which is completely supported in SOA as well. So that means if suppose that source is sending the message to the target, but at that time target is not available. So what will happen in that case? If suppose SOA is not in picture and source is sending the message to target, then it will get failed. The record, your order will get failed because the target is not available. But when we have a SOA in place, the source send the message to SOA. SOA store the messages. Okay, and if target is not available, the messages will stay in your SOA. And once your target is up and running, then your source can send the message to target, or target can pick the message from the SOA. Right. So that means this SOA has an intermediate capability of storing the data as well. Okay, and that is specifically you can say it is a very reliable solution because your data is not getting lost. Even when your target is not available, it will store it and it will send it, or maybe target will pick up from the SOA once it is up and running. So this is another benefit of your SOA. Right. So these are the major benefits of your SOA. Okay, what we have talked about. And at the last, let me quickly tell you the different kind of a component and what is the role of that in SOA. Okay. So now the first component what you heard about is BPEL, Business Process Execution Language, and this is also called the heart of SOA. Heart of SOA, BPEL, Business Process Execution Language. Apart from that, you have a workflow. Then you have business rules. Then you have events framework. Then you have OWSM, which is called the Web Service Manager. Then you have a BAM, Business Activity Monitoring. Then you have mediator. Then you have adapters in SOA. And then you have enterprise scheduler, enterprise service scheduler. So now these are the some core component of the SOA. Okay, so when we talk about the SOA is an integration tool, it has the storage facilities, right, and it has a loose coupling structure. So that means all of these features has been designed. You can design using all these components. Okay, so the other core thing is when we design these kind of integrations or code in the SOA. So that is called composite. Okay, composite. If you have some idea of the any of the application server like JBoss, WebLogic server, so there we deploy the application in .var, .ear formats. Okay, so when we deploy the application in the SOA, this is called the composite. So the full form of SAR is SOA archive. Okay, so what I said in SOA we deploy the application in SAR file. Okay, which is called the SOA archive. Okay, that means it is in a .jar format. Right. So this is a specific term with respect to a deployment, and this is what we call to the deployment file. Okay, that we deploy in the SOA using the Enterprise Manager console. And apart from that, as I said, we have the critical components. So I will come to this BPEL part later. Okay, I will come when I will explain the mediator, and then I will come to this one. Okay, so now the first is workflow. For workflow is simple, like just is it clear from the name as well. There is a flow of certain kind of a work. Okay, this is simple, like we have an approval mechanism in our organization where some employees apply for the leaves, and then it goes to the manager, and manager review that one, and then he approve in the system. Okay, and then it get reflected in the your HR system. Okay, whatever the leave that you have taken. So that means there is a workflow, like where you are applying for a leave, it is going to your manager, then he is reviewing that one, then he is approving that, and after that it gets reflected in the system. So that is called a simple workflow. Similarly, if you would like to design certain kind of a workflow in your SOA composite or in SOA, okay, specifically for example in an e-commerce business, when an order is initiated, okay, once the order is confirmed, okay, after that there are a lot of workflows need to be initiated, like you have to send the details to your delivery partners, to your inventory store, to your multiple vendors, right? So these kind of a workflows that you can design with the help of SOA workflow. Now business rules are something that is where you can change the code on fly. That means you have a certain kind of a requirement where you need some frequent changes in your application, and for that it's not feasible for you to update the code every time, update the code and do the deployment every time. Okay, that means you can do certain changes on your code on fly dynamically, right? For example, maybe you have a different kind of offers in your organization, okay, which change day by day. okay, or maybe multiple times in a day or any special occasion, okay, where you give different kind of offers to the customers. Maybe the discount, you can say that there is a discount on some item. Today is 20%, tomorrow is 50%, maybe other day it is 10% only. So there are a lot of different kind of business rules that you can define in your SOA without modifying the code of your composite. Okay, it's a dynamic rules. Event framework is a special kind of a framework that is generate certain kind of events in certain kind of conditions that you want. For example, if you need an event or to be generated if your total sale of the days or maybe the amount of a particular order increase with a certain amount. For example, if some of the order has been booked which is the value of more than 1 lakh, okay, and for that you would like to generate an event so that it should send a message to some of the senior managers or maybe to some other authorities for the scanning. Okay, for that you can use this event framework. OWSM is web service security manager, okay, or service manager, which is used for managing your web services and for securing your web services. Now it is an integration tool, right, where your source are integrated with the target with the help of SOA. So there is a major role of web services here for in terms of the integration. So you have to make sure that you have proper services, web services are in place, and then the proper security are configured. So for that we have a OWSM. BAM is a reporting and analytic tool. So now here what we have discussed, you have a different kind of a workflows, you have business rules, event frameworks, and a lot of more along with that I'm going to explain here. Okay, see, if you would like to check the analytics of that one, reporting of that one, how many transactions are flowing in my system currently, how many transactions have been registered in last 1 hour, 2 hour, 5 hour time frame, how many orders I have received in last 1 week. So these kind of a graphs or these kind of analytics to you can create with the help of business activity monitoring. You can create different kind of a dashboard, different kind of a charts to get the insight of your business which is flowing from your SOA, right? And then mediator. So mediator is like a tool which mediate the data flow between your SOA component. That means, as I said, we have a multiple components in SOA like workflow, business rules, event framework, OWSM, BAM. Then we have a BPLs, we have adapters, ESS. So if the data is flowing between all of these components, which is part of your SOA composite, right? So as I said, we deploy the applications in SOA, which is called the SOA composite, right? So this composite will be a combination of all these components. Okay, so that means mediator allow the communication between your different SOA component, right? Apart from that, BPL, which I said it is a heart of SOA system. Why it is called as a heart? Because all the integrations or the development of all these tools or activities we do on the BPL platform. So BPL is an orchestration platform where actually we design the SOA code where we use all these components, right? So let me explain again. So what I said, in SOA we deploy the application as a composite, and when we design the composite, that means we are designing certain kind of a integration between source and target, and then we are doing a certain kind of a transformation. So all these things we can do with the help of these components, whatever you are seeing on the screen: workflow, business rules, event framework, OWSM, BAM, and then adapters, ESS. So all these components are integrated using the help of BPL orchestration manager. Okay, this is called the business process execution language. So this is the heart. So whenever you are going to design or create any of the composite in your SOA, okay, the first thing you have to create, we have to initiate or you have to create a BPL, and this BPL will have your all these components based on the requirement of your application. Okay, now along with that you have adapters. So these adapters are the connection point to your target systems. Okay, so now here what we discussed so far, that your SOA integrate with the targets and source send a message to target. So now these target can be of different type. It could be a database. Okay, it could be a file system. Okay, maybe your source is sending some files to your destination. Maybe source is sending certain kind of a data which is need to be stored in the database. It could be your JMS, right? Your source is sending message to SOA, and this SOAs need to send message to the some destination JMS servers or the messaging queues or topics. So this source can be of any type, right? So now to talk to these different kind of sources in SOA, if suppose that SOA want to talk to DB, SOA want to talk to file system, SOA want to talk to JMS, okay, for that we have a different kind of adapters. So these adapters create the connection to the different targets. Okay, so for example, if your SOA need to connect to DB, so you have to use the DB adapter. Similarly, if your SOA need to send message to some JMS, so it is going to use a JMS adapter. If it is going to send some file to the target, then it need the FTP adapter. So adapter are the connections or the connectors. You can connectors in SOA, which is used to create the connection with the different kind of targets. Okay, now enterprise scheduler is a just like a cron. If you know the cron in the Linux, which we use for scheduling certain kind of a job which run in a particular interval repeatedly. Similarly, we have an enterprise scheduler in your SOA. With the help of that, you can initiate or schedule different kind of a jobs with respect to your applications and code. Okay, so these are the critical component of your SOA. And apart from that, you may also heard about then OSB and MFT. Okay, OSB and then MFT, managed file transfer. Okay, so this OSB is similar to mediator, but the one of the major difference you can see here, this mediator is a part of the SOA. So that means once you will install the SOA, all these components along with the mediator will be installed by default. Okay, but OSB and MFT also considered as a part of SOA, but they are completely a different stack. They have different software stack. Okay, if you need OSB or if you need the MFT, then you need to install it separately. Okay, you can configure this in the same domain of the SOA, but altogether you have a different installer for that one. You have to install it separately, and then you can configure that inside the same domain. So OSB is required when you want to have integration or message exchange between the external systems. Okay, and this mediator is used for the intercommunication between the component which you have designed in SOA. Maybe the communication between workflow and business rules, and within the event framework, OWSM, okay, BAM, BPEL, adapters. So all this intercommunication are provided by the mediator, but this OSB, a separate tool, it has some different benefits, pros and cons, okay, which we use to integrate your SOA with the external world. And MFT is again a tool similar to your FTP adapter. What I talk about here, if the source need to send a file to target, then in SOA we have a FTP adapter. With the help of that, we can configure your source to send file to any of the source which has a file system. Okay. Similarly, the same kind of activity you have in MFT as well. Okay, this MFT is also a tool. Okay, which we use for the managed file transfer, for transferring the files, but it has some other benefits on top of that, and these two topics we are going to cover in separate topics. So this is all about the SOA, okay, end to end from basic to the bit of advanced level.